All right, good morning, guys. After we looked at the Civil War Reconstruction Google slides, your next assignment is to analyze Reconstruction a little bit more closely, and specifically to answer this question: were African Americans free during Reconstruction? So we know that in a legal sense, they were absolutely free. The end of the Civil War led to the passage of an amendment that ends slavery. In fact, it's one of the documents you're going to look at in a second. But that doesn't mean that they were actually free. It really depends on how we interpret that question and the evidence. So here's what you're doing. You're going to click on this link and you're going to read some primary source documents to help us answer this question in ACE format. So to do that, we're going to organize our evidence first. You can see this document is broken down so that you're going to put 4 pieces of evidence that argue that African Americans were free, and 4 pieces of evidence that argue that African Americans were not free during Reconstruction. By looking at both sides, you can then decide on your own whether you want to answer the ACE response with they were or were not free. So why don't we do one together to go ahead and show you exactly what it is you'll be doing. Click on this link, Reconstruction Documents. You can see once it pops up that the first thing here is a timeline that gives you an idea of what was going on and the major events during this Reconstruction time period. If you remember from my slides, it said from 1865 to 1877 is the time period that most historians consider Reconstruction. So you can see some different amendments, you can see some different organizations were created, some different presidents elected. You can go ahead and look at that on your own. But just as an example, I'm going to read Document A, which are the 3 amendments to the United States Constitution that were passed during the period of Reconstruction. So you can see 13th, 14th, and 15th, and they were all passed in different years. So let's go ahead and read the 13th first. 1865, Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So if I look at that a little more closely, essentially it's outlawing slavery within the United States. Amendment 14, 1868, 3 years later. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or impunities of citizens of the United States. I'm not sure what those 2 words mean. I'm going to go down here. Abridge means limit, and immunities means right. So, in other words, the states can't pass any laws that would limit the rights of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property, oh, look at that, our natural rights, without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So let's think about that one. Basically, it's saying if you were born in the United States, you're a citizen. And if you're a citizen, you have these rights that can't be taken away. So obviously, that's falling as a Reconstruction Amendment because it's referring to the slaves that were born here in the United States. They weren't citizens before, but this amendment says if you're born in the U.S., you have all the rights of a U.S. citizen. 15th Amendment, 1870. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So this amendment basically is saying that the United States has to allow you to vote regardless of your race, your color, or previous condition of servitude means if you were previously a slave. So I've actually got a lot of evidence here in this document that says, yeah, African Americans were free. I could use evidence from any of these amendments to argue that. So I'm going to go back to my document. It says you may use one document more than once, but not more than twice. So I know this is the first document. I can only use it once. Excuse me. I can use it once, but not more than twice. So I'm going to pick one here. I'm going to go ahead. It says insert document here. So I'm going to put document A. And then the evidence I'm going to use is 13th Amendment. And I'm going to say what that says. Slavery is no longer allowed in the U.S. So obviously, if the question up here is were African Americans free? Well, if slavery is no longer allowed, that's definitely evidence that the African Americans were free during Reconstruction. So you're essentially doing this 4 times for each argument. 4 times for were free, 4 times for were not free. So if I go back to my documents, I could put one more from this document if I want, because it says I can do up to 2. But you can go ahead and decide that on your own. But make sure you read each document. Some of them will give you good evidence for they were free. Some of them will give you evidence for they were not free. You have to read those closely to find that. Once you've filled out both sides with evidence, then you have to make a decision. Were they free or were they not? You have to argue one side or the other. That's where you come down here. You're going to fill out your ACE response. I've given you some sentence starters here that you can see. You're going to fill that out in this box here. And basically your answer is either going to be they were free because, or they were not free because. Helpful hint, guys, don't put your evidence in the first sentence. You're going to put they were free because they had rights. And then, for example, would be the examples of the rights they had. Or maybe you would put they were not free because their rights were limited. And then, for example, you would put how they were limited. Don't put evidence in your answer. Make sure your answer is the claim that you're trying to make because of something. The 4 examples where you're going to put your evidence. All right, guys, get started. And don't forget to submit when you're all done.